Hello and welcome to another episode of the British and Irish Eagles podcast, brought to you by Loch Lomond Whiskies and Passyunk Avenue. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, guys. Phil's hosting, Liam's patched another losing podcast, but I assure you this time he's very much under the weather, as pretty much every single person of the British and Irish Eagles HQ has been ill considerably over the last few weeks. I had COVID a couple of weeks ago, so that's been through my household. Liam's stuck in Scotland somewhere, not feeling particularly great, and Mick is with me tonight, battling through his own family's illness. Thanks for joining me, Mick. I was planning to possibly do the first ever Next Man Up. Not Next Man Up, sorry.
Ooh,
British and Irish Eagles, throwback British and Irish Eagles podcast as a solo, which I definitely wasn't looking forward to. So thanks for battling through to join me, Mick. I hope your family's coming through what's been ailing you over the last couple of weeks. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I mean, I was sick on Sunday after watching the game that was put in front of us against the 49ers. It wasn't pleasant to watch, and neither was the illness that's ripped through my household over the last few weeks. It's winter. The kids pick up everything from nursery. I inevitably get it. They get it. There's just sickness everywhere. My missus can't deal with it. So inevitably I have to deal with it, and I've got a strong stomach, so it's not too bad. I can handle it.
Yeah, I'm very much not looking forward to the day when a serious illness rips through my household. We've been quite lucky, I think, because it was COVID. Young uns don't tend to suffer as much, and we're not even sure if he had it at all, whether he did. But he's coming out the other side of it, and he's not been too badly affected. So my sleep's been pretty good, but I'm dreading the day when it starts to be the brown stuff and other stuff that's coming out both ends and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to it, but
it's chucking the kids in the bath at 2:00 in the morning. That's the bit that gets you.
Which is like, I remember being chucked in the bath as a nipper myself, so I kind of know roughly what's in store. But now it's the sort of the stark reality of actually what is occurring at the time. Because when you're a young kid and you're ill, you don't really know what's going on. You just kind of, the bath time. Oh, this is fun. Like, what's going on? And none the wiser. And it's like, no, it's because your parents are at panic stations, and that's the best thing they could think of in that moment of time to sort of remedy the situation. But anyway. I know, despite the solemn start to the podcast, I jest. We love doing this thing for you guys. It's slightly less fun doing losing podcasts, I will admit. But as we'll get through this podcast, it's always part of the healing process, and once we get through, we usually feel a little bit better and a little bit more positive going through to the next game. Isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely. We've got to pick ourselves back up after, it was probably the worst loss that we've seen in a long time, because whilst the Eagles have lost a game already this season against the Jets, it was our own doing. We turned the ball over too many times and made some silly, stupid mistakes, and that's happened quite a few times, not only this season but last season. But it's very rare a team just beats us down, just totally outclasses us, outfights us, just everything goes wrong for us, and we just can't match the energy that the 49ers had, and it's a bit shocking to us because we're not used to getting blown out. It just doesn't happen to this team, but we take it on the chin. We have to be men and say, when the other team is better, they're better. They were better on the night. Congratulations to the 49ers on winning their Super Bowl. But we're not going to cry about it. I like our players' response to it. They've not came out and started blaming referees and blaming decisions and making excuses for themselves. They're going to pick themselves back up because it's Dallas week. We're still in this gauntlet, as quote unquote, and there's a lot of football still to be played before the end of the season. Don't count Philadelphia out just yet. We're still the number one seed in the NFC. That is a fact. It's in our hands. Everything is still in our hands at the moment.
Yeah, I feel I've heard a lot of people sort of cling to the 10-2 top of the NFC argument. I don't think it has as much power for me as it does maybe other people, because I feel like it doesn't, that can change again this week if things continue not to go well, which is a bit of a glass half empty approach. But you are right; it's sort of a bit of a threefold situation, the loss, because it's yes, we had lost to the Jets, but it felt very much like a very slight blip. So it felt very much like we were still sort of 10-0 rather than 10-1, and you get that impervious sort of sense of like indestructible team, like nothing can hurt us, nothing can go wrong for us, we're going to beat the Niners, it's not going to be a problem. And then when it happens in the second fold is how the nature of the loss, such a blowout loss. I mean, it was pretty close until midway through the third quarter, but the fourth quarter was just almost just like, stop, we've given up, you won, like just take the dub and leave us alone now, which they definitely weren't going to do. They wanted to hammer it home. And I think that then brings you to the sense that, well, it's a crisis of confidence for me. I don't believe that that's the case for the Eagles, but as a fan sitting there, you're sitting there kind of going, well, we were so good, but maybe we're not so good anymore. You start questioning everything that you were sort of, you listen back to all the podcasts this season, how confident and bullish we've been about the Eagles and how good they've been. A loss like that is the sort of thing that makes you look back and go, was I wrong about all this sort of stuff? And rightly or wrongly, because we'll get into some bits and hopefully we'll make ourselves feel better after this. But that's the initial sort of like impact of such a loss, is that you start like going internal and going, look, have I just been completely naive, and have I missed these signs? Have I ignored these signs? Like, all the Bills game and the Chiefs game where we won and we're so excited that we won those games. We didn't think that we were going to win, or with a rematch of the Super Bowl. But there were a lot of flaws in those games. There are a lot of issues in those games, and they get papered over, as we mentioned plenty of times. When we win, you kind of, it doesn't matter, we won. This is one of those games again where it's like, it went so badly and we lost, and now we really need to come up with some answers. And I really hope the team is going to be able to figure those answers out come Sunday. But it certainly shook my confidence to the core. But anyway, before we get into the game, we'll get on with some news, shall we, Mick? Let's just put off the game just for a little bit. Just talk about some maybe more positive aspects, some more negative, but generally I think there's been some quite positive changes for the Eagles since Sunday night. The bit of news we were all waiting for was the team, the hat that Darius Leonard was going to put on his head. Just referring to the college drafting process. Kid sat on a sofa. He decided to wait until after the game to do his big reveal. And I guess a lot of us maybe coming off the 49ers loss were thinking, oh God, he's not going to want to come in now. There's too much for him to do. He's not going to be able to come in and play processional football and win a Super Bowl. It could be a lot more harder. But he still chose the Eagles, Mick. And that's a bit of a flip. It's a bit of an uplift immediately after a loss. Maybe that's what was planned. Maybe he'd already made his decision. Maybe the Eagles knew, and maybe they're like, we'll wait until after the 49ers, so in case we lose. Nah, I'm sure that's definitely not what happened. But it was. I think it was never in doubt, Mick, was it? After all the pictures of Big Dom walking him through the airport, his connections with Sirianni, the fact that the opposition was the Cowboys. Like, why on earth would any player ever want to go there? Surely it was a no-brainer, Mick.
Yeah, I had the feeling that Shaq was going to sign with Philadelphia. The news broke. He was still deciding between Dallas and Philadelphia, and he was taking the weekend to decide. And there was rumors. It was like, depending on if the Philadelphia beat the 49ers or not, if he would join us. And that turned out to be complete bullshit, because we get blown out, and he still chose Philadelphia. He said in an interview with the media, it was more to do with the connections and how the staff and players around our team know Shaq, and he feels more comfortable in this environment. And that speaks volumes, I think, for the coaching staff and the culture that Sirianni cultivates in Philadelphia, in the city. So credit to them to get the guy in the building, to get him to agree a contract, because, well, it's just using up cap space that otherwise we wouldn't have spent. If we can get a guy in, he's an all-pro player, maybe he isn't, recently he's had a couple of back surgeries. There's obviously concerns there. We don't know what we're going to actually get out of him. But it can't be any worse than what we saw in the linebacker core on Sunday. So it couldn't have come at a better time, really, with Nakobe Dean still sidelined at the moment. We've had a few injuries. Zach Cunningham looks like he's probably going to come back. But, Nick Morrow and Christian Ellis as the starting linebackers just did not work out. And I know the guys have taken a serious beating over that game, and they're not the only problem with that. There was a ton of problems in that game that we're probably going to cover in more detail on this podcast. But Shaq comes in with a bit of experience. He can rotate in, rotate out, and that's all we're looking for. We're looking for the upside that we can get from this guy, that we can squeeze out of him to go and see us out for the rest of the season and hopefully the postseason. So it's a low risk move for Howie. It's a no brainer. I'd rather have him in our team than not at this point. So
yeah, I think that's pretty much the general gist I've got. The fan base has definitely been a little bit divided over it, between the people who think that he's washed, and it's a bit like teams when they signed Carson Wentz after he left the Eagles. Yeah, but what about 2017? That kind of argument of, yeah, but look how he's a two-time All-Pro, blah 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 blah. But this is 2-3 years removed from that. So yeah, has he got the same kind of punch after 2 back surgeries? One would argue that it's unlikely, but we've seen it work with other players that have had those kind of careers come into the Eagles and had a bit of a renaissance. There's even talk, I think, there's rumours about Ndamukong Suh maybe jumping back in for a little bit towards the end of the season. I doubt that's got much legs, to be honest. But when you see stuff like that, you're thinking, God, anything right now. I think we just need a bit of an injection, a bit of a, when something's broke, bring someone else in and might hopefully fix it. But as you mentioned, Nicholas Morrow and Christian Ellis were our starting linebacks, and as is evidenced by the blowout loss, Ellis has been waived, Mick. So bye Ellis. I mean, again, assuming he might end up back on the practice squad somewhere. If no one's going to claim him, that's probably quite likely, considering he's not actually set the world alight in his opportunities. We've released wide receiver Cam Sims. No idea who he is. I think, Mick, if you know anything about him, feel free to jump in. I think he was
he played at Oklahoma with Jalen, didn't he? I think briefly, but he's not done anything in the league. So
no, and Greg Ward is back, mate. I mean, I'm happy with that. I know certain people in the group were sort of, I think it was Ross who was a bit damning in his assessment. I'm not sure exactly where that came from. I mean, in my experience of all the times Greg Ward's been in the team, he's always come up with at least one good moment, one key moment in a game that sort of, yes, he's still around, reminds people he's still in the league and provides something to the team. And at the end of the day, he's not coming in as anything more than a wide receiver 5 or 6 at best. If someone goes down, a couple of injuries or something, Julio Jones is obviously liable to, with his age, and that's maybe pop up with injuries, obviously on the injury report at the moment. But you happy he's back, Greg Ward?
Yeah, they called Mr. December a few seasons ago when he was one of our top targets and hauling in all the passes. Obviously, we've got much better options these days, so I doubt we'll actually see him on the field, to be honest, Phil. But yeah, no. I mean, it's just practice squad moves. It is what it is. Yeah,
that's enough said about that. But a little bit of bad news is more news on the tush push, Mick. I mean, it never seems to bleed and go away. Barely have. I think in the last couple of games we've hardly actually really used it. I mean, we scored another touchdown with it, but it feels like the impact it has on the field is now been overtaken by the impact it seems to be having behind the scenes. Like, more people are getting disgruntled and have an opinion of it, and are coming news stories about it than there is actual impact of it on the field. Like, the Eagles using it and actually benefiting from it. It's been key in previous games where we've been having drives that have almost stifled out on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 even, and it's allowed us to extend drives. But it doesn't really feel like we've had those kind of situations the last couple of games. But NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has now weighed in on the situation and has made his feelings known, and he wants it banned, which is not a good sign when the guy who's the big cheese in charge of the NFL is coming out as on the other side on the opinion that he wants it banned. So would suggest that it's probably even more increasingly likely to get banned for next season, although it does have to be voted on. We are much reminded, but the bad news comes flying in on that situation as well, when all of our NFC East rivals are all represented on the voting board. So I think it's safe to say that it's hanging by a thread at the moment for next season. That being said, I think it's had its, I say it's had its run. I don't mean it like I've given up on it. I mean, we've had 2 good seasons of making full use of it. We'll just find another way. We'll just adapt it, because essentially what they're trying to ban is they're not trying to ban the play itself. They're banning the concept of pushing the quarterback. And I think there's definitely other ways when your quarterback squats 600 pounds or whatever it is. I think he's more than capable of getting himself over. I think the Eagles are more than capable of running it. I mean, we've had success with the quarterback sneak over the years anyway. The tush push has only just come in because they figured out a way to get around the rules, Mick. Are you sick of talking about this now? Because I know I am.
Yeah, I genuinely thought we had turned the corner on the whole brotherly shove and talking about it every week, and it being so prominent in the media, and talking heads around the league talking about it, and being on every social media post that you ever see. And then Roger Goodell decides, I want to flare this back up, and weighs in with his opinion on it. If they want to take it away, they can take it away. But I'm in the same camp as you, Phil, and I feel like the push doesn't really look like it provides much in the way of what is being executed on the field. What I'm seeing, the touchdown that we scored against the 49ers, like Jalen didn't even go on the ground; he just walked through. Because of the power of the offensive line, and that wasn't anything to do with someone pushing him from behind. It was just, it's the offensive line. It's Jason Kelsey is the secret sauce to this, and the massive plates of meat that are around him, with Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. These guys just move bodies, and you can't stop that. You can't take that out of the game. That's a fundamental part of the game. It happens in every fucking snap. So, Roger Goodell, get fucked.
But that's it, though. I think it wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I don't want this to happen at all. But just imagine, like, if this is Jason Kelsey's last season, which I don't think it is going to be. But if it is, and it's like they ban the tush push, and then the Eagles turn around and go, well, it's fine. Kelsey's retiring anyway. Like, we won't be able to run it as well. So it's kind of like all that bluster and spouting stuff on social media to try and get it banned. It's like, well, we're probably going to stop running it anyway, because, the key to it was Jason Kelsey. And look at, because he literally just dives forward and just creates a channel, and the guards either side of him are just sort of creating that channel. The push is almost just in case. It's like a backup option. It's like a, he's not quite managed to get through. We'll just give him an extra bit of boost. It's a bit like, for the Dragon Ball Z enthusiasts. It's about, the anime where they just give a little bit more extra power to the energy blast that they're fighting the enemy with, for the cartoon anime nerds out there.
All right, nerd. All
right. I used to love watching that as a kid, and not so much now, but it just reminded me of those situations. Yeah, that's enough for talking about that. I don't think. I mean, I'm trying to convince myself that it's not going to matter, but it's just disappointing. I think overall that people are still banging on about it, like it's some sort of anti-Eagles thing. Like, how can we screw the Eagles over? I don't know. We'll ban this play. We'll do this to them. We'll give them We'll give them 2 opponents on the trot with mini buys. And fuck off, Roger. You got bigger things to worry about. Right. Let's move on to some more positive stuff. And it's I don't think the injury report is quite out yet, so we're going off Wednesday's injury report, but we will hopefully update you as the pod goes on if the injury report comes out. But as of Wednesday, Goddard back to full practice. Mick, how great is that to see such a quick recovery? I mean, I swear this is quicker than when he had the kidney laceration. I think he was out for 5 or 6 weeks on that one, but this is Was it a fracture? It was a fracture, wasn't it, Mick? I think.
Yeah, it was a fracture when he took he went down with the Dallas defensive back in the game at the Linc that you were at. And he's back already in time for Dallas away, so could have come at a better time. We really need tight end one back in the building. We've been missing him not only to be Jalen's safety blanket in the passing game for those short or intermediate throws, but also in his run blocking ability as well, because that's sorely missed. I know Jack Stoll does a good job of that, but he's not a replacement for Dallas Goedert, and you can see that the options just aren't there. I think Albert O got some snaps this weekend against the 49ers, but I mean, the guy might as well just be an invisible jersey on the field, because I don't think Jalen sees him either.
It's a real shame that Albert O didn't have much of an impact. I mean, we were quite positive about it as a as the type of player he has been, and coming into a team and getting a new chance. I really thought I had high hopes for him coming in, but yeah, he's going to be a likely casualty if a certain number 87 makes his eventual return. I can imagine he might be the one who makes way for him. Speaking of which, Mick, what's your thoughts on the potential for Ertz to come back now that he's been released by the Cardinals, free to sign with a contender? The Eagles have been slated of having interest in him. I'm not seeing 100% buy-in. I think a lot of the people on the positive side is nostalgia related. But do you think he could still do the job and slot back in and be a number 2 to Dallas Goedert? Obviously, when he left, that was the ascension of Goedert to the number 1 spot. Do you reckon? Well, that's kind of a twofold question. Do you reckon he could have the same impact, and do you reckon he'd come in and be okay being the number 2 guy?
Yeah, well, this is more for the people that watch the video podcast, but this is how I feel about it, Phil.
Oh, I didn't even notice that at the start. For anyone not watching, clearly Mick has his Eagles. It's a white Eagles jersey with number 86 on the back.
Zach Ertz. I'd love the son of Philadelphia to be back in that fair say. I think he does realise his situation, that he will come in and he will be number 2 to Dallas Goedert. There's no there can't be an ego thing with Zach at this point in his career, where he is. What he's accomplished after post Philadelphia is, I mean, not an awful lot out in the desert, but when he comes back, or if he comes back, I mean, people in the know are saying it's on. I expected it to be announced by now, to be honest, Phil. We're sitting here.
Yeah, that's the only question I've kind of got, is there a delay, and is there a bad reason why isn't a delay? Is it the Eagles aren't really that interested in it, or maybe there's a wrangling over somewhat what they'll actually pay him and what role he'd have? It's a bit confusing why it's taking so long.
It might have been just one of these things where if we thought Dallas wasn't going to be back for maybe 1 or 2 more weeks, maybe it would have happened sooner. Maybe
you can still get him in the building though, even if he's not. I mean, even if he came in today, like if they announced tonight, he's not going to play this weekend if at all. He might do, but I would imagine the Eagles will be reluctant to just go to shove him straight in. But having him in the building would be quite a boost for the team, I think. So it's a bit strange, but I think personally, I would love to see him back, because I think it was sad when he went. I remember we were all sort of saying we hope he goes to Arizona. It's funny how things change in the NFL. We were thinking go to Arizona. They were one of the super tips for the Super Bowl that year. And we were hoping that he went across and got a Super Bowl ring, and they had a good strong start, and then they absolutely fell off a cliff. And then he kind of got he was just floundering in a terrible team, and then Jonathan Gannon comes across. I think that's probably the final nail in the coffin. So it'd be nice for him to come back. I think he's still relatively young enough to do a job. I think it'd be a good boost for the team, and I think he could generally do something in a team that's so devoid of genuine tight end 2 talent. And what's better than bringing in your former tight end 1?
I mean, he just offers another pass catching option, and in the field, for in 12 personnel. If you've got Goddard and Stall on the field at the same time, you've got an eye on Goddard in the passing game, but you don't really have an eye on Stall, do you?
No.
But if you've got those two on the field, yeah, you'll need to have another think about that. So maybe keep defences a bit more honest and keep them guessing a little bit, because I think we're quite easy to read at the moment, and that was one of the failings in this past Sunday.
Yeah, we'll get onto that shortly, Mick. Don't worry. But to finish off the news and the injury reports as we've got them at the moment, Cox and Cunningham are in limited practice, which is a positive sign. I know Cox did play at the weekend, but the fact that he is still practicing, even on a limited fashion, is positive for Cox. And obviously, as we've spoken with the linebacker situation, having Cunningham back at limited practices is a huge boost, along with the signing of Darius Leonard. So hopefully that is a few things trending in the right direction. Last little bit of news is quite a special one. I think it's only come out in the last couple of days, and it's definitely worth noting, and more so for the videos that have come out today, bringing it here to my eye and definitely Jason Kelsey's eye, as he congratulates his fellow offensive lineman Lane Johnson as being the Eagles' nomination for Walter Payton Man of the Year. So for those, obviously everyone knows, but for those that may not know, what the Walter Payton Award is a nominated player from each and every team that has sort of done exceptional work with the community, charity work, generally, that kind of all-round good guy contributing to the community, society, and for different positive reasons. This year is Lane Johnson. I think what makes this more special, from my perspective, and probably a lot of other people's perspective, is that Lane Johnson's had some significant troubles with mental illness over the years. I remember when it happened two or 3 years ago, when he was just out of the team for about 3 or 4 weeks, I think, around about that.
Yeah.
And it was just mental health illness. And at the time, I think it maybe hadn't been given as much attention as it needed to, especially from an NFL perspective. You think of these players as earning mega bucks, having the life of royalty. Nothing can possibly go wrong for them, bar an injury. But even then, they've got their contracts, they've got their lifestyles, and their love and life. We never think of players in those positions, especially big, stocky, burly, angry men beating people up on a weekly basis, having mental health issues. And he took a step back and massively highlighted the struggles that people can go through no matter what situation you're in. And on top of that, he's obviously done work in the community. I think he brings in people to the game, like a fan to the game every week. I think it might be something to do with the mental health side of things, whether it's part of his community and he brings one of them to every game. And he's obviously raising a huge amount of money for charity and doing a lot for the community. And that then stuck out to Jason Kelsey when he congratulated him in the offensive lineman room. For those that haven't seen the video, I suggest you check it out. It's, Jason Kelsey these days doesn't take much for him to get emotional about things. He's very keen to show his emotions these days, but just watching him sort of talk to his friend and colleague over the last decade about how proud he is of him, and the fact that the reason he admires the nomination maybe more than previous ones is because of how understated he is. He's not some guy out there shouting from the mountaintops, look how great I am, look how nice a guy I am, look how generous I am. A lot of the stuff that Lane Johnson has gone unnoticed, and I think those often mean the most to people, because when you're humble about it and you're not trying to advertise it, it comes across as all the more genuine. And I think that is me going up on one, because I think mental health is hugely important, but to me as well, I've massively suffered it myself over the last year, and I think it's certainly an important thing that needs to be brought to the forefront. And I think bringing it to the forefront of the NFL is a perfect platform for him to be doing that. So, what are your thoughts, Mick, on the Lane Johnson nomination? I know I've probably covered it all, but give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it's. I think he's building a bit of his portfolio as well for becoming a Hall of Famer. This all goes part of his bid to not be nominated for Canton is what he does on the field, but also what he does off the field. And he's been such an ambassador for mental health, like you said. And it's not just lip service either. Like, the guy preaches it and he lives it. He struggled with it himself, and everybody does to a certain extent. I know I have. You've said, you've admitted yourself that you have as well, and everyone goes through a little something. So it's just putting the word out there that people are not alone in this day and age. There's ways to reach out and get help, and it's really commendable. For you said, it's a guy who's a multi-millionaire. He doesn't have to come out with all this stuff and preach this and tell us all about his own struggles. The guy could just sit in his mansion and drink whiskey and and forget about it. But he doesn't. He does the right thing. So it's great to have him on the team. He's going to be missed once he does hang up his cleats eventually.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think one of the main priorities on the off season for the Eagles is going to be finding his eventual replacement, because he is going to be such a hard person to replace. He is definitely worthy of the number one pick that the Eagles have that year, if they can trade up for someone, even, because he is that important that you do not want to suffer that dip, as we've noticed when he's not in the team. We're going to jump to the game, but the injury report has just come out, so I'm just going to go through it quickly now, Mick, to get your reaction.
Okay.
So we've got a couple of did not practices with Julio Jones still suffering with his groin, and Darius Slay is rest/knee, didn't practice today, so I'm not sure if we should be worried too much about that. If it says rest, it's obviously probably more precautionary and just trying to keep him fresh for the weekend. Zach Cunningham still limited with his hamstring injury, which we'll see what happens with the injury report tomorrow, but I'd hope to see him at full practice before the game. I wouldn't want him going into it, especially with a hamstring injury and the chances of re-injuring hamstrings if they're not fully repaired. We want him back, but we don't want to break him again and have him out for longer. So we'll see how that one. And then Cal Katera, Fletcher Cox, Dallas Goddard, and Jack Stoll are all back to full practice with their injuries. So not many people left on the injury report, so that's a good sign, Mick.
Yeah. I've got. You want to see a clean sheet, don't you? I think the 49ers had a clean sheet against us right now. I think Dallas are trending similar. But yeah, it's good to see us trending in the right direction. Having Fletcher Cox back would be great. And then our tight end positions, 3 of our tight ends are on this report. All full practice, of course, which is always good to see. Zach Cunningham will definitely need, like you said, the hamstrings a bit of a funny one. Darius Slay is a funny one as well. I know he's on there for rest/knee, but it was the same yesterday as well on yesterday's report. So 2 rest days seems quite a lot, but the defensive guys have played a lot of snaps. But
that is true.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one tomorrow. Like if he's still DNP tomorrow, then that's alarm bells.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's get on with it, mate. Let's get through this. The loss to the 49ers, 19-42, at home, absolutely outgunned, outplayed, and outfought by the Niners. It was a close game, as I mentioned, going into midway through the third quarter, going into the fourth, but then I think tiredness took over. As I mentioned, the Niners had significantly more rest than us before, and let's not try and make excuses, as our players aren't making excuses either. But it's hard to overlook the fact that an extra 3 or 4 days rest does have a massive impact on a team, and especially going into the fourth quarter. If the Eagles had turned up and been leggy the whole way through, then I probably would have given it more credence. But I think once you play 3 quarters of intense football against probably your strongest rivals, come into the fourth quarter, you're kind of mentally drained, physically drained. The Eagles have played a record amount of snaps in the NFL over the last 2 games for the Buffalo Bills and the Niners, especially, like I said, on defense. So it's no surprise Darius Slay is on the injury report, trying to get some rest back, trying to recuperate. Lots to break down, but generally the 49ers, I think, just they wanted it more and they were more well prepared for it, whether that's through rest or generally because they got it right in the preparation. We will go again for Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys, but I think you've kind of given your overall assessment of the Niners game, but just quickly again, sort of your overall short opinion of what happened.
Yeah, it was so funny because we started with the ball, and offensively we did well. We marched straight down the field, and then we just couldn't get it done in the red zone. And I said at the time, 3 is it was good first drive, but threes need to be sevens when you're playing an opponent like this. And I said it last week as well before the game. In the preview of the 49ers, we said we have to start fast in this game. We have to put points up immediately on the 49ers because they can hurt us. They have weapons. And history has told us so far this season, when they go down early in the first half, they don't come back. They're not a comeback team.
Mm.
Like from a massive deficit. I know they were down 6-0 at the start of this game, but you have to turn threes into sevens. And then, sorry, I know I'm not going to go too much far into this, but the 49ers get the ball. Reddick makes Purdy eat dirt on that first or second snap, first or second down on that drive. He forces 3 and out. Offense gets the ball back straight down the field again. Yeah, the offense was we're cooking at that time. Jalen holds on to the ball a little bit too long, slips, takes a terrible sack, and again 3 points instead of 7. I'm not going to kill Jalen for slipping. That sort of thing happens. That's what it is. But at the same time, we just can't let these things continue to happen. If we had scored a touchdown on the first drive, the second wouldn't have been as bad. But both drives to run down the field, and what was it in the first drive? It was 12 plays, 67 yards. The one after was 12 plays, 53 yards, and we come away with 6 points from 2 of those drives. That's just asking for us
yeah. That was probably a massive warning sign in hindsight. I think you look at that and go, I don't think any of us were worried because at that moment, because like you said, we'd marched down twice in a row, so it felt like the offense was clicking. So you were like, yeah, we haven't got 2 touchdowns off the first 2 drives, but it feels like we were going to get plenty more. So you weren't that worried. But as the game went on, that fact just became ever more clear that we could have done with those 8 points that we dropped off those first 2 drives, and might those 8 points when we were down 21-13 would have been a tie game. So you can argue it has a massive impact. That's a touchdown and a 2-point conversion missing off the score chart, which has a massive impact on the mental side of the games. But for me, it was just the fact that certain little unusual things happened. Like we've gone down for the first drive and not got a touchdown before, but twice in a row was odd. Jalen Hurts, a few of the dropbacks, slip. I know, like you said, it wasn't his fault, but it just felt like that was symptomatic of him dropping back and looking rather overly casual, like almost a little bit too comfortable. Like, yeah, the line was holding up and the pocket was sort of generally still there, but it felt like if it's not there now, normally Jalen would have thrown it away. And we'll touch on Jalen in a little bit, but it just felt like a few uncharacteristic aspects of it. And I think also ultimately we weren't ourselves. We weren't our usual self, and there was something wrong, whether that's fitness or whether that's generally not being as prepared. I don't know. Yeah. But we'll start with the bad, and we'll try to work through to what good there was in the game. And there was a little bit, but it's generally very lopsided this week. I'm not going to lie to you guys.
We just need to get through it.
It's a bit of a painful one, but let's get through it. Tackling is one of the big things that's been in the aftermath on Twitter, especially with Seth Joyner and Darius Slay getting into a little bit of a tizzy on Twitter, on X, after Seth Joyner was captured on a punditry show. laying into the Eagles tackling. And I think not many people disagreed with Seth. I think it was very much like one of the big points is the tackling was just subpar. Some players felt like they were making the wrong decisions, not tackling hard enough, pulling out of tackles, trying to swat away a ball rather than taking the player out. And Slade clapped back at him, sort of tried to defend his corner. But I think on this one, Darius, I think whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't make a good look when you're coming out sort of clapping back and trying to defend something that was clearly missing, whether it's specifically on one person or one aspect. Is like, I think just stay out of this one personally. But
is that why
Slade
he's not been at practice? Seth Joyner's
Yeah.
taking them out.
Yeah, I mean Slade did lead the team in tackles with 5, so he did have grounds to clap back. But I think ultimately Seth Joyner was talking sense, Mick, and the tackling just was massively off. And there's been people today I've seen sort of referring back to prime Shagger Singleton days when we used to see some incredible tackles, even though a lot of them were behind the line of scrimmage. Those days where you'd see that tackle that would just give you a bit of a boost, Nick. What's your take on the tackling side of things?
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? The missed tackles was a massive part of this game, and it allowed the 49ers to just take yards that just shouldn't have been there. And it was killing drives. It was we were managing sometimes to get the Niners into 3rd and long situations, and they would just run like a wheel route or something like that, and Debo would just break a tackle, and it would be that's it, the first down, and the defense are already, spluttering because of how many snaps that they played, if the week before against Buffalo in the overtime. So it's just so demoralizing for the defense as well. And when they miss tackles like that, it just compounds. It just makes it so much worse when you're like, right, new set of downs, it's still time to go, and they just picked us apart. Yeah, but the missed tackling it's something that can be cleaned up, Phil. It's not something that's not fixable in this defense. It's not something that we can't address for next week, for this Sunday, or for following weeks. There's not like a massive gap somewhere. It's not, you can't point to a particular player. Like I think Reed Blankenship missed a tackle, I think, in one of them, and he's usually one of the best tacklers on the field if he doesn't normally have the most tackles on the field in any given week. And he's really consistent, but yeah, he missed maybe one or two, and it just makes it look so much worse. But it's not a fundamentals problem. It's just unfortunate, and it just all came together in this game. And it couldn't have been worse timing, just for like so many things to go wrong against that team.
Yeah, it's Reed has played a lot of snaps, so I feel like I'm not even going near him. I think he's been probably one of the few troopers out there that's battled through, played every single snap against the Bills, including overtime, and then played pretty much every snap, I believe, for the Eagles against the Niners as well. Yeah, 100% again, along with Morrow and Byard and Bradbury playing 100% of the snaps. And Bradbury obviously had a big game against the Bills as well. So it's certainly, you can't ignore that it's taken out of them. But yeah, the tackling definitely needs to improve. And they've made adjustments. They've made additions with Leonard coming in. Cunningham, fingers crossed, will be back. And I think it definitely won't be the same level of poor tackling. It's just whether they can correct 100% or whether they can just sort of eke their way back to getting a more positive stat line for the tackling. But so we'll leave that one there, and we'll move on to the rushing, because this one is absolutely baffling to me. 46 fucking yards. I mean, it's just unacceptable. And 20 of those were the quarterback. So you've got a player like DeAndre Swift. I mean, even Gainwell has been having a little bit of a more positive impact, less so on his drives, or they stifled runs, but even he only got a handful of yards. I think he got just correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, actually only got 5 yards, but it felt a little bit more impactful than that. But when you only get 46 yards, I'm sure the split is not going to be very high. But we had a Niners fan at the watch along, and I was speaking to him about it, and his main concern was the Eagles running, the rushing attack that the Eagles had, and the fact that the Niners were so poor at stopping the run. And it's like, who made the decision to run it so little? Or was it the fact that the early running that the Eagles did do got stifled sufficiently enough to make the coaching second guess themselves, Mick? I mean, it's just not good enough, is it?
No, absolutely. It's I don't know what's going on, and we've seen the signs outside the Novacare saying "run the fucking ball" from the fans, and it's
Sirianni's seen it.
It will be something familiar with Sirianni. You know, it was chanted from the stands. If you remember in Sirianni's first season, it was chanted "run the ball, run the ball." The fans were clapping ironically when we actually did call a run play, if you remember that a few seasons ago. And we're so reluctant to use this run game that we're becoming so predictable to the opposing defenses, and we've got to keep them honest. We've got to keep them guessing whether it's a run play or a pass play, and that just killed us. It nails us because they're going to leave a safety deep, and we're not going to get AJ Brown or Devontae Smith open on these deep passing plays because the safeties are open. They're going to bracket with the cornerbacks. They're going to play cover 2, cover 4. And, we've got no option. Jalen doesn't seem to want to run it at the moment. Maybe that's his knee problem. Maybe it isn't. Maybe that's by instruction, but we've got to be better. We've got to pound it. We've got one of the best offensive lines in the game. I know we'll be missing Dallas Goedert in the run game and such, but there's no reason that this team can't run it. We've already seen it this season alone, like at the very start against the Patriots, against the Vikings, we were running the ball at will. We couldn't pass it for shit at the time, but we were running the ball with ease, and we thought, this team coming into the season, we thought this is a team that have no problem running the ball. This is one of the best team at running the rock, and it just seems to be something we can't rely on just now. And I feel like it's not a personnel thing. I think Swift is absolutely electric when he gets the ball in his hands, and he can make huge plays. He can break tackles. He can make a guy miss. I think his yards per carry average is 4 point something. But he's not been a terrible back where you don't trust him with the ball. Kenny Gainwell, I don't fully trust Kenny Gainwell still with the ball. I don't think we've seen enough rotation with Boston Scott either. This sort of running back by committee that we've sort of preached over the last couple of years, that seems to have just vanished over the last 6 or 7 weeks. And like I said, we're just becoming so predictable. We're just leaving ourselves open to defenses just going, right, just throw it on us. We'll deal with it instead of having to drop a safety down to the box to prevent the run. They're just sitting back and dropping guys into coverage, and it's just not good enough. And if the fans can see it, why can't the coaches see it? And that's one of the things that annoys me so much about fucking sports, and I think every fan feels that frustration. It's like when the fans are pointing something out, how did the coaches not see it, or are they too stubborn because they're like, all the fans are saying it, so I'm just not going to do it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the most frustrating bit about it, is that when someone like me, who has a very low level of understanding of the very fine minutiae of an NFL coaching a team in the NFL, sorry, just to sort of see that, look, when it works and when it doesn't work, and it'd be like, well, look at what happened against the Chiefs. It got a bit stifled, but they got creative with the blocking, and Jason Kelce like absolutely pancaking someone halfway down the field, and DeAndre Swift ripping off a 26-yard run. It feels like they're just either too frightened or too stubborn, like you said. Like there's something like mental block that's stopping them from doing what they can do, or being creative, or throwing caution to the wind, where they can kind of go, well, we'll try this. If it doesn't work, it's no big deal. It's almost like they're so frightened to pick the next play, because it feels like if it goes wrong, it's like, oh God, we haven't got that secret weapon that's going to get us that first down if this doesn't work. Whether that's the fact, linking into Hurts's running this season and the injury that he's got, maybe that's in the back of their mind, that they don't have him as a backup as much as they would want, and that's what they're not telling us, or that's what we don't know, is that they don't want to be putting the team in a situation where Hurts has got to scramble for an 8-yard run because they've stuffed it up on first, second down. Which is probably my best theory, is that there's definitely an undertone of Hurts' knee injury that's not fully disclosed. They're doing the bare minimum to keep the NFL happy with injury disclosures and stuff. He's not been on the injury report at all. And I think that's noteworthy, because
not even once. Not even
once. Not a limited practice, not a rest day, not nothing. There's no, and it's like they don't want to do it because of the chaos and the impact around the morale of the team if they see, and the fans getting on his back. And I feel like there's got to be something in that. And call me crazy, call me Elliot Shaw Parts, call me Jack Hibb Sports, whoever you want to call me. But it feels like one of those theories where you kind of go, he's normally coming out with crap takes, but this one might have some legs. And that worries me, I think, about the situation, why the running game has just been so mystifying at times. It has to be something to do with that, personally. Speaking of Hurts, let's move on to the other part of the band, which I put on the note taking. I don't think Hurts played badly overall. It's more his decision making in the pocket, and as I alluded to it earlier, Mick, sometimes he looks a little bit too comfortable, too casual, and the reason I focus on that is because I understand if no one's open down the field, but you usually see the quarterback's eyes frantically scanning the field, frantically looking around, hoping for that player to sort of start creating some separation and maybe get open for that throw. But it almost felt it was a bit cocky for me. And I'm not saying he was being cocky, but the aura of it was like, I've got all the time in the world. I'm just going to be calm. I'm just going to wait for the play to develop. I'm not going to try too hard I'm not going to force this one. Something will happen. And then on the slip play, that just felt symptomatic of, where you're being a bit cocky, a bit too calm, and then you balls it up and you made to look like a tit. And it's like, well, there you go. That's the karma for sort of looking a bit too calm and uncomfortable. I don't know if I'm again just creating a theory out of nowhere, Mick, but it felt like he just wasn't. Normally he'd throw it away or he'd scramble a lot sooner. And I don't care whether the pocket's still there. If by 5-6 seconds nothing's materialized, you get on your bike or you throw it away. If you're under pressure, you throw it away, or you run and get 3-4 yards, run out of bounds as he normally does. It just felt like a couple of times he didn't do that, and that stuck with me, Mick. I don't know about you.
Yeah, just holding the ball on for a stupid amount of time. There's a certain
Interested.
I don't know how many seconds it is, but
yeah, that's what I mean. I'd be interested to know what
point you're like tuck and run or try and throw someone open. They might not be open, but throw them open, and that doesn't happen a lot with Jalen. But yeah, it's kind of just who he is, though, Phil. A little bit. He's never too high, never too low. So he plays the way he is, and that's just, like you said, a bit laid back, a bit horizontal, a bit, not fazed by the occasion or by the opponent. I think it just speaks to who he is rather than anything else. I don't know.
I just think that you're right. He is like the ultimate of cool. He's never going to get flustered, and he's never going to do something stupid. But that's all the more reason why that counts equally in that situation, is that the cool, calm, collected head has got to realize after a certain amount of time, this play is not going anywhere. My best, and it's like he normally does that. So this is what's all the more mystifying, is that normally he would be like, this play's not going anywhere. I'm going to scramble, maybe get 3 yards on the sideline, as he normally does. And he didn't do that. And yes, he slipped, but that was almost just like, I felt like karma turning around and going, you think you've got all the time in the world, do you? Well, there you go. Sit. Nah, you're not going to do
Pull
that
the
again,
rug.
are you? Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it just bothered me, and obviously the whole side of the things about whether his ability to scramble or whatever's going on with his knee, truthfully, is having more of an impact and having to game plan and scheme for it more than they're admitting.
Yeah,
It
it's
has to be
frustrating.
something to do that. But we'll try and wrap up the bad with one last little bit, and this one for me is getting me a little bit angry the more I think about it. And it was the whole situation surrounding Hurts getting taken out of the game for the concussion check, which obviously that's not the bit I have the problem with. It's the bringing him back in with 8:44 left on the clock, and I think we were down by 23 at the time, and all the starters and Hurts were still on the field. Now, I know you should never give up, and you should never be in a position where you should, deep down, you should be trying to fight until the last second. But sometimes I feel like there are certain moments where you kind of not give up, but you accept the situation that you're in, and you go, like, I think maybe it's time to count our losses in this game and live to fight another day, when another day is Dallas. And the fact that you've just got away with the fact that Hurts has come back in. We all seen Tua go out of the game for concussion checks, come back in, not be 100%. And I'm not for a second saying that I think that's happened, but you're risking that. Like, if the concussion check's been, the amount of pressure, like, we're all panicking because Hurts has gone out of the game and we're desperate for him to come back in. I don't want that to be the same for the team, where they're like, he goes back in, ends up getting himself hit again, and then is out for the season because he's had 2 concussions in the game, or two massive knocks to the head. And that's me being the fence. Now Liam will probably be screaming at the pod right now going, Phil, you're such a fence, and so half glass half empty. I think this is more of a hindsight take. In the game, I wanted him to come back. I wanted us to try and win, but I think I'm not the one making the big decisions on the team. I'm not the one whose job's on the line if things go badly. And I feel like maybe from a coaching perspective, maybe the smart move was just to kind of hold your hands up, go, you've got our number on this one. We're not going to risk any of more. I starts considering how many snaps the team played against the Bills, the defense, how ragged we were. Just kind of go, sorry guys, we didn't want to admit defeat, but we were down by 3 scores with 8 minutes left, and the game had not been going well to that point. I think. Tell me I'm being massively overreacting with this, Mick, but I can't help but feeling that like a cooler head or more sensible common sense should have prevailed in this situation.
No, you're correct in that there's a certain point in the game where you're just like, okay, this game's dead. It's like you probably felt it in your heart of hearts standing in Passyunk. I felt it sitting watching at home. Like, this game is dead. There's no need to have the starters out there. The worst thing that could possibly happen at this point is an injury, especially in the run that we've got and the postseason that we're 99.9% guaranteed to be in. Whether that's a 1 seed, the 1 to 4 seed, or even perhaps not even winning the division, but we'll see. But it's more than likely we will be in the playoffs, and we need Jalen first and foremost. That is the most important part of this entire thing. The whole team, the franchise, all hangs off of Jalen Hurts' ability to stay healthy and be on the field. And we've experienced the last season, towards the end of last season, he got hurt again in the Bears game, and he came out, and we had to try and clinch the 1 seed with Gardner Minshew playing in Dallas and then playing against the Saints, and he couldn't get it done. We had to bring in an injured Jalen to get it done against the Giants. And the season before, I'm sure Jalen missed games on that season as well due to an injury. We know he's carrying this knee knock. We just don't. It's just there's no point. There was just no point in having it. I totally agree with you, Phil. At the time, I was just like, worried about Jalen, obviously, because you see him jogging in the locker room. You're like, oh no, what's going on here? Although it was positive seeing him actually jogging to the locker room, because you're like, okay, it's not his knee, it's not a problem with his legs or anything like that. So it turned out, we found out it was a concussion check. So and he was able to make it back. Maybe make it back for a series, okay, but not to remain in for the entirety of the game. It's just, yeah, a bad coaching moment, I think, from Sirianni. I think he possibly wanted it too much, and he tried to save his own. I think he might have done it just for his own, ego, in that way, that he just didn't want to, like when you're playing chess and you rest your king down when it's checkmate. He didn't want to do that to Kyle Shanahan, so he tried to keep it alive when it was already roadkill. So no, I totally agree with you, Phil. So that's completely fine.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for people to scream and shout at me and tell me to get a grip of myself. But I just feel like this was too pertinent a point, and shout out to Bleeding Green Nation for that point. When I was doing my research, going around the articles and that, there was a point they made that I sort of stuck with me, and I focused on it for a little bit too long, and it sort of made me sort of not feel bad, but a little bit sort of worried from a coaching and a management perspective that, your captain, your leader, I mean, off the field in Sirianni is not always going to make the 100% decision that he should in that situation. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, and at the time, we all wanted him back in, so I can't really slate him too bad.
Let me ask you about another coaching decision, Phil. Do you think Sirianni should have gone for it on the 4th down instead of punting when we were 2 scores down in the end of the 3rd?
Well, I think given how it seems to have worked out most of the time this season, and I think if you go for it and it doesn't work out, you still kind of get half points for the balls and the intent to go for it. I think given the way the game was going, it needed to be something like that to spark it. It took another incident that we'll talk about in a minute for some sort of life to be sparked into the team, and I think sometimes going for it, either doubting himself or doubting the team, one or the other, wasn't confident that they'd do it and didn't want to make a situation worse. Yes, 2 scores is definitely recoverable, but I think given the team had recovered back from 10 points a lot of times this season, I think once it gets to 14 or more, you kind of, maybe it's not the same principle that you're applying to it.
Yeah, I think he had to go for it, and I know we were in our own territory at the time, but it just, I know hindsight's a great thing, because you say if we went for the 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, 2 or 3, can't remember which, maybe it comes off as desperate because we're not winning the game, we're down 2 scores, and we're heading into the 4th quarter. The offense isn't ticking, the defense is got their legs wide apart, inviting Brock Purdy in for a right good old time, and Christian McCaffrey double teaming our defense. But
it was a 49ers Bukaki pie, wasn't
it? Yeah. Why don't we call that the name of the pod? Can you do that? I don't know. Spotify might not let us do that.
No,
but yeah, I think it had to happen at the time, and when it didn't, Phil, it was just one of those moments where I thought, this game is getting away from us. Is when you start getting really worried. You're already, we're down a couple of scores and we're not really clicking. But this team is like a massive comeback team, and you've still got that little bit of fight still in you, and you're thinking, we can come back from this because we've got Jalen Hurts, and we can run the 2-minute offense, and anything can happen in the game of NFL. But when we didn't go for it, I just thought, yeah, that's just letting all the air out of the balloon, and it was, for me, it was just the turning point in the game, and just for that mental state of the game's gone.
Well, it makes the previous coaching point all the more baffling, because they contradict each other massively.
Yeah, true.
The punt comes before the Jalen Hurts situation, right?
Yeah.
According to the clock, as my guesswork goes. So they've already suggesting that they're not got the confidence, or they're not as being as risky as gambling on it as much as possible. But then when their quarterback gets taken out for a concussion check and you're down in 3 scores, you decide to keep him in the game and keep going for it. It's there's a bit of concern there, and I know we're going through this and we're hoping that by the end of it people come out a bit more positive, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more negative just towards the coaching side. I think those two situations put side by side just don't agree with each other, don't marry each other, don't sort of suggest that the Eagles weren't feeling it early on and realised it was going to be a hard day and were just being a little bit more conservative. So cheers, Mick.
No problem. Let's go on to the good.
Let's go on to the good. So there are a couple of good bits, and unfortunately there are only a couple of bits. We'll touch on Lane Johnson first, I think, Mick, and he kept Bosa very quiet. And there's a couple of good video clips, if you haven't seen them, of him absolutely crushing him into the dirt because he's got him onto his front, and he's just like literally just like down, stay down. Kind of like,
love that.
Don't you dare get up. And I think it went unnoticed because of how the game went. You know, you don't focus on how resolute and how dominant Lane Johnson was against such an incredible defensive player in Bosa, but he kept him to 0 sacks and just 2 solo tackles. He did have a few combined tackles, but very low on the stat sheet for Bosa this week, and Lane Johnson just had an absolute game. So not really much to cover on that, but Mick, you know, anything to add?
Love that. I've just got this mental image of, see when a dog pisses in the house and you like rub its nose in it. That's what Lane Johnson was doing to Bosa.
Kind of similar to what I had. It was more if the dog's misbehaving and you grab them and you sort of like not force them into the grab, but you sort of like dominating and you sort of like pressuring on the scruff of their neck to sort of assert your dominance on them. And they're like, no, and they're like, oh, I fucked up, and they know they've done something wrong. But in this case, it was just more of a case of keeping the dog that is Nick Bosa very quiet for the game. So kudos to Lane, but he is not.
Can't stand him.
Yeah. I mean, every time I think of Bosa and the Niners, I keep thinking of the video of Joey at the championship where he was getting absolutely heckled by the Eagles fans outside. It's such a glorious video because it's just the epitome of someone who just needs to know their position and realize that they don't have to engage with such petty mocking, but he couldn't help himself. And it just shows that the Bosa family, personality-wise, are not the greatest of people. But let's move on to the second of our 3 goods, and that is the receiving core, Mick, because again, when you have such a blowout loss, any positives get kind of masked in there, but the receiving core had a day, really, given how badly we did on the score sheet. But Smith had a clutch touchdown late on in the game in back of the end zone. Quite impressive how he managed to catch that. I think it was in double coverage. Still managed to sort of let it come into his midriff and fall back onto his backside, despite sort of 2 players being in the throwing lane, and got 99 yards. I think it was. He almost broke 100 yards yet again. 96 yards. I beg your pardon. 96 yards he managed to get. So 96 yards and a touchdown is definitely a good day for a wide receiver. I think any wide receiver out there will be more than happy with that. And AJ Brown broke 100 yards yet again. Not quite 125 yards. I think he got 114 yards on this game. But still, no touchdown for AJ Brown, but a lot of clutch catches over the middle. Solid like first down conversions as we were relying on, especially with Dallas Goedert out. AJ Brown tends to fill that role of being that safety net, that strong pair of hands to sort of get you enough yards, and the yak man managing to get us a few first downs in key moments. And I know people are going to shout down the phones at me, or shout out their listening system at me for giving Watkins a shout out, but I feel like despite only having a modest 3 receptions for 28 yards, those 3 receptions were quite key. There was a couple of key clutch catches. I mean, he's not impacting the game, he's not winning this game, but I feel like I just want to give him a shout because I feel like he's had an awful lot of slack, and he definitely did more positives than bad in that game, and I felt like he needed a bit of a pickup. I know he listens to the pod and he's desperate for that pickup,
Yeah,
but
of course.
Still, I don't know. I guess I feel a little bit of attachment to Watkins because I feel like I bigged him up. I tipped him for a breakout season when he did come into the team, and he did have a good season, but he's had a bit of an Aguilar tail off. And this may well be the last season we see him in an Eagles jersey. But in general, receiving core, Mick, anything to add? Sort of sneaky, good game, but obviously not enough to really impact the scoreline, though.
Yeah, it was another big day for the big two, Brown, Smith, and we're going to have two wide receivers over 1,000 yards this season. It's happening. I mean, Brown's already over 1,000, but Smith is at. In fact, let me just check. Smith is at 834 at the moment with 6 touchdowns. Brown is at 1,164 with 7 touchdowns.
You'd like to think that Smith's going to get another 170 yards over the next sort of 6 games.
Absolutely. So it's such a luxury to have both of these guys. And, Watkins, putting his head up and making a couple of important catches, I'm good with that. It was interesting to see, actually, one of the plays that Devontae Smith had, and it was the screen that they set up for Devontae. It was like, it was third and forever, I'm sure it was, or second and forever. And it actually worked for once.
Yeah.
The Slim Reaper was running through traffic. He managed to get the first down on it. But I think, like, AJ Brown manages to get all these yards, and he pops up, and he's like Hurt's go-to guy when the going's good. But see, when the going is tough, it's Devontae Smith is the guy that Jalen seems to go to, and the guy that makes the tough catches, and gets beaten up on a lot of the plays. He takes some hard hits, and this guy's 180 pounds or something like that. It's insane. It's insane. I know. I feel like I'm bigging up Devontae Smith every single week on this podcast, and why not? Why shouldn't I? Because he's fucking fabulous.
It's an interesting point about the fact that he seems to be the break glass option when it really does get a bit tense, and I think that's probably partly down to the fact that teams know when the Eagles are getting desperate, mark AJ Brown out of the game, and you're having the issue. You've got more chance of stopping Smith than you do AJ Brown, and that's not. It seems a bit of a counterpoint, but I think Smith is that good that he is still able to overcome some really difficult catches and some really big plays. But having those two together is just absolutely phenomenal to enjoy as an Eagles fan at the moment. And I really hope. I know there's been rumours. Liam's got his sources. People have spoken to all sorts of opinions flying in about whether we're going to keep them both for next season. But I'm definitely going to be in the camp of we've got to do whatever it takes to keep those two around for as long as Jalen is the quarterback. We need to have Dallas Goedert as the tight end, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown as the wide receivers, and Jason Kelce as the starting center. And I know not all of those things are going to happen, but I think when you talk about teams committing for a Super Bowl and going all in, giving up draft picks to sign big guys, I think going all in for the Eagles is knowing what you've got right now and thinking you may not get it this good again. You've got to find a way.
Don't let 1,000-yard receiver leave the building. Just don't. Madness.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So moving on, there obviously is not going to be a damn right sexy in terms of the game this week. So we're going to send that award to all the fans that came down to Passyunk Avenue and enjoyed the game, but had an absolute whale of a time. It was actually pretty much a mini Birds Fly Home reunion, because I think there was at least half of the the group that went across to Philly for the Dallas game in the bar, sporting the endless amounts of Kelly Green that had been purchased in the pro shops and Mitchell and Ness and all sorts. It was a big sort of catwalk of Philly Kelly Green out there, and it was great. So I think the damn right sexy goes to you guys this week. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone that came down. It was, you make it all more special. It's a commitment for everyone to get there. But once everyone's there, it just feels like a home away from home, and enjoying a loss despite that is special for us. It's what we do it for. And I know there will be with the Seahawks. Whilst we're on the subject, the Seahawks watch along obviously has been cancelled due to the selfish NFL flexing it to a Monday Night Football. I just don't think it's reasonable to expect a large group of us to change all our travel plans and still attend on Monday. I know it's hard enough getting a Monday off, let alone a Monday and a Tuesday. But that being said, the Passyunk will obviously still be open and showing the game. So if you do live local and it's not a massive adjustment for you, then make sure you get down there and show your support to the guys and gals who run Passyunk and sacrifice a lot of late nights and early mornings, especially this season. I was talking to Gaz, the co-owner of Passyunk, who is saying this season has been quite tough in terms of the hours, but they do it all for us, and then we need to go down there and we need to make sure that they realize how much it means to us. But we do have to do a shout out though for Braden Mann. I think, Mick, you are right. You just added it into the notes there for me. I didn't actually think about Braden Mann at all, and I know he has been shouted out a couple of areas, but he has been quite a revelation since coming into the team early in the season, getting rid of Aaron Sipos, finally, Mick, and bringing in Braden Mann. I'll let you take this bit away, mate. Tell us how impressed you've been with Braden Mann this season.
Yeah, I mean, the frustrations that we've had from Aaron Sipos. I don't need. I would like to strip that name from my memory, just wipe it clean. Braden Mann's come in. We weren't quite sure how he was going to perform. He's untested, unproven. I think he had a small stint at the Steelers, but since he's come in, he's been nails. He's put us in some real good field positions, and the special teams can't really be faulted that much over the last few weeks. I know we've had our problems on offense, on coaching, on defense, but I mean, and I'm a guy who has done nothing but give shit to Michael Clay, the special teams coordinator, but I'll give him his due right now. Braden Mann putted all three of his punts inside the opponent's 20-yard line. That's averaging 50.7 yards per punt. 50.7. In total, he had 2 punts for 50 plus yards, a 52-yarder, as well as so since week 6, Mann's averaging 51.7 yards per punt, which is third in the NFL, and he's also registered a 44.3 net punting average in that span, which is sixth in the NFL. So we're talking about a top 10 punter in the league that we've managed to just scrape off a practice squad and install in our team seamlessly, and the guy is performing week in, week out, and he deserves to be shouted out because punters are people too, as we say. When Jake Elliott has a good game, we've got to also shout out Braden Mann because he's performed very well since he's came in, and love to see it. Well, hopefully it continues, but I mean, to just put up those kind of numbers, it's exactly what we need.
Well, yeah, and obviously the often forgotten aspect of a punter is being the holder. For Jake Elliott, and Jake Elliott's been on clutch form this season, so you have to give him credit for that as well. He's been coming in, and it's been the flawless kicking has got to be a little bit in account of Braden Mann's confidence as a holder as well. So shout out to him all around. Yeah, fully deserved. I mean, you can argue that maybe he deserves a damn right sexy, but we've already given that out to the British and Irish Eagles, to the people, so we'll leave it at that. Now, before we wrap up the game, we've got to touch on the Loch Lomond Play of the Week. And now you might be wondering, Which one? I mean, and there was a few good plays. I think I'm probably being overcritical in saying that there wasn't anything to choose from, but I think one play or one instance stands out amongst all, and it's Big Dom for me, Mick. And it seems a bit sort of like, we're sullying the name of the Loch Lomond Player of the Week. But I think it did have an impact on the game. It fired up the team. It got the fans going. It was the spark that we needed. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capitalize on it. But Greenlaw obviously taking out Devontae Smith on the sideline. Big Dom's there to jump in and defend his team. Maybe he says something, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think it really matters what is said. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shouldn't hurt you. As a big bad NFL player, you should be able to deal with a bit of back and forth verbally, but swinging at anyone on the sidelines, any player on the field, anyone in general is unacceptable. And I think he was rightly disqualified for it. Big Dom, for his troubles, also got disqualified, but on the balance of things, losing a player versus losing a guy who just patrols up the sideline, looking out for Nick Sirianni can be considered a little bit of a win. But I think it's, like I said, it almost injected the right amount of spark into the team to maybe on the comeback. It didn't quite do that, but it also speaks volumes for the culture of the team, is that players and coaches and everyone in that organization will do absolutely anything and everything for their teammates and everyone in the organization. I think that's, for me, is why I think it's deserving of it. Happy for you to disagree, Mick, but I want to make that the Loch Lomond Play of the Week, is Dom squaring up to Greenlaw.
No, I love it, and it was one of those where you're on the edge of your seat in the game because it's already quite tense, and then a fight breaks out on the pitch, so you're just like, yes, let's get fucking into him, and you feel like you're there. It got me excited. It got me really riled up for the game, and it was like, right, let's do this. This is the, like you said, the spark that we need just to go down and give the 49ers a punch in the mouth and say, we're Philly, we're here, we're the team in the NFC to beat. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, but it was a huge moment in the game that I felt like it felt like one of those turning points, Phil, where and it wasn't even an on-field thing; it was off the field, but it just felt like a turning point where you're thinking this is going to just galvanise the team, and they're just going to get behind, Big Dom and show support and just rally and finish the 49ers off and get back in the game. It's fully deserving of the Loch Lomond Play of the Week, I think, and be one of the more interesting ones definitely this season, for sure.
And on that note, thank you, Dom. Here's the Loch Lomond Player of the Week goes to you, and that sounds like a good time to go for an ad read, Mick.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Celebrate victories, rally through challenges, and bond with Phill fans as you toast with a dram of Loch Lomond single malt whisky. From tailgating gatherings to watch parties at home, Loch Lomond whisky becomes an essential companion, enhancing the moments that make football so extraordinary. It's the perfect accompaniment, from the joy of victory to the bittersweet moments of defeat. Loch Lomond offer a wide range of malts, with their flagship perfectly balanced, and signature expressions Inchmoan and Inchmuren to suit any taste palette. Celebrate greatness on and off the field this season with a perfect balance of Loch Lomond whisky and Eagles football. From the first pour to the crowd roar. Fly Eagles fly.
Yeah, I love that advert. So let's move on to the Cowboys preview quickly. But before that, just a quick update on the win-loss record that we've been keeping track of in the second half of the season. Now, it'd be no surprise that the Eagles' loss meant that we all took a loss. So nothing has really changed in the overall scores. Mick still leads, but has lost his perfect record, sadly. He wasn't able to keep it going. and we all predicted a win, so therefore we all took an L. So Mik is currently 11-1 for the season on his predictions. I am 9-3, and Liam has now suffered his 4th loss of the season. Is at 8-4, so he's struggling to make the playoffs in this one. Whereas Mik is out for the number 1 seed, and I'm desperately trying to hang on to his coattails, hoping that he slips up further.
How's the fantasy league doing? The NFC one? Do you?
The NFC draft, I think I'm storming that at the moment.
Really?
From what I haven't checked it that often. I was going to check it towards the end of the season, but I think drafting the balanced team that I did allowed me to.
Oh yeah, blowing your own horn here, Phil.
What's that? Sorry.
I said
Oh no,
blowing
you
your
are.
own horn here.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not actually, because I thought I was doing well, but you are. You are 10-3, and I'm 8-5. So that was me talking absolute bollocks out of my mouth for a change. I shows how much I keep an eye on it. It's always a fun little one, but it's interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Shout out to AJ, the guest that we had on drafting the team. He is 2-11. I think we all knew that when he drafted his team. I don't think it was a particularly strong one, but
Well, he took Daniel Jones, if I remember correctly.
oh yeah, I suppose.
And I got shit for not taking Daniel Jones, if I remember correctly.
You took Sam Howell, so that's probably working out why it's working out for you, because he's had a pretty good season. I'm actually
I think
trying to think who my team would. Well, to be honest, I think I'm going to struggle this week because half my team is on bye, with Washington being on a bye, so it's not going to help my case. Anyway, that's a digression that I wasn't expecting. No, I'm saying I wasn't expecting to cover that. But anyway, moving on to the Cowboys preview. The Cowboys are 9-3, literally hanging over our shoulder, waiting to pounce on the number 1 spot in the division, and also potentially the number 1 spot in the NFC. It feels a lot like the Niners build up. We are the better team on paper, I feel, and should be going in with high confidence. However, the team isn't. If the team isn't prepared, or we haven't fixed the issues that we've mentioned in the Niners game, the Cowboys definitely have the ability to punish teams. Now, they've punished teams generally with a losing record this season, but good teams beat bad teams, and if we are bad, there's a chance that we could be one of those victims as well. That being said, I feel like this is equally nervous just because it's in Dallas. If this was the home fixture for Dallas Cowboys, I'd probably be feeling that we'd be due for a massive bounce back game, and I'd be fully confident of it. But I feel like there's just a bit of a curse at the moment with the Eagles fans, and generally with the fact that the Cowboys are so dominant at home this season. But generally, we have tended to lose in Arlington quite often, more than not, this in recent memory. So it's going to be an absolutely tough battle to go in there. But I feel like maybe the Niners' loss will be that injection that we needed to kick ourselves into extra gear going into the final run of games to make sure we snag that number 1 seed. So I think if you wanted a game to try and bounce back from such a crushing defeat, there's nothing like going into your enemy territory and handing them a massive fat L and doing to them what the Niners did to us. And I feel like this is an opportunity to really lay the marker for the playoffs and going forward. This is a key moment, and I feel like mainly because if we do lose this game, the Niners and the Cowboys will have a chance to get a game on us. If the Niners will have a chance, the Cowboys will obviously gain a game on us, and we'll be on a level equal record, but the Niners will have a chance to do the same. So this game has got a lot riding on it, Mik, and not just from a personal perspective, but from an overall NFL perspective. This game has the chance to really shape things going into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge one, and I don't know, because I keep getting told that the season sort of being pinned on this game against Dallas, and I don't fully believe it. I started off believing it, and I was going to go down that route, but I think I'm going to go the other way.
Yeah.
It would be great if we could go into Dallas and punch them in the mouth, recover well from the 49ers and take the dub. That's what I want. Of course, that's what I want, Eagles fan. Hello. But we don't tend to do very well in Dallas, and Dallas are a team who play very well at home. And I know how soft their schedule has been this year. I've been one of the ones to point out how soft their schedule's been.
I think I know where you're going with this.
They've played fucking nobody, really. But history has told us that the Eagles don't play well in Dallas. And we've allowed Dak Prescott to play really well against us as well. Even at home, we nearly lost that game, Phil. That was an escape for us. In some sense, I know you were there. A lot of the British Eagles were in attendance, but it was a nervous game. And that, at one point, Dak was like throwing the ball all over the yard, and he barely had an incompletion. At one point, he went 29 for 44 in the end for 374 yards, 3 touchdowns. CD Lamb had 191 yards. That can't happen, and I've not seen a response from the defense since that game because. Yeah, okay, second half versus Kansas City, yeah. But we didn't do much against the Bills. We got absolutely shat on against the 49ers. And, yeah, hopefully we're able to make corrections to this, but the signs aren't really telling me that. And I don't want to be, Debbie Downer of the podcast, but it doesn't feel like it's an easy win for us, but whilst I've said all that, okay, it's also not the be-all and end-all of the season because Dallas have a really, really difficult end to the season.
They do, yeah.
We're going through the gauntlet. We're nearly at the end of it. In fact, this is the last game of it, you could say, because the Seahawks aren't who we really thought the Seahawks were at the start of the season. But, you look at the games that Dallas have got coming up. They've got the Eagles, they've got the Bills, they've got the Dolphins, they've got the Lions. That's all contenders. That's all playoff caliber teams. That's not something that they've faced this season. So to say that this game is going to rest on the NFC East Championship is just fucking idiocy because Dallas are not going to win out. They're not. They're going to drop another game in there. They might even drop 2 games in there. Whilst the Eagles, yeah, not every game is an easy win. But we've got the Giants twice, who the guy at quarterback, I think, fucking sells cannolis at the week during the week. And the Cardinals, Johnny Gans, maybe he'll be up for that game, but, the Cardinals aren't anywhere near it at the moment. And the Seahawks, was I already sort of spoke about. So, whilst I think it's going to be a really tough game and it's a really big ask to expect, I think that's for me, it's the expectation to think we need to go in here and win because if we don't, the season's over. No, that's bullshit. The season's not over. The season's 17 games. It's 18 weeks. It's not ending next week. It's not ending this Sunday night. So no. I just want to sort of curtail expectations a bit for some people and also tell them also it's not the end of the world if we do take a loss against Dallas because yeah, they are a good team and we would probably expect to see them again in the playoffs, but the league doesn't end on Sunday night.
No, and I think you are right there. Like it doesn't end. I think it's more the fact that if we do lose against the Cowboys, it will be 2 quite significant defeats on the bounce. Momentum shift wise, it's not a good place to be in. That's where it worries me. We will be level potentially with both the Niners and the Cowboys at that point, and then the pressure is a little bit more on us to win out. But like you said, the schedule for us is significantly easier than the Cowboys, and as we know, as we've stated, the Cowboys have got a fortress in Texas, but when they're on the road, they're not so strong, and they face the Dolphins and the Bills away. On the road, with only when the Lions come into to Texas to play them later on before they have the Commanders away again. So 3 out of their last 4 games are on the road. The Commanders game you probably can't put too much weight on because it's at the end of the season, so who knows what the situation will be in, and the Commanders probably aren't going to put up much of a fight if they're not fighting for anything at the end of the season. So there is reason to be optimistic that if it doesn't go our way on Sunday, that we should still be shading it in the odds for getting the division at the very least. Whether the NFC number 1 seed overall is still ours or still fighting for it, whatever the situation being. But the Dolphins are also fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC, so that's going to be a really tough game for the Cowboys. So that'll be a really interesting game to watch on Christmas Eve. Before the Eagles play the Giants on Christmas Day. So that'll be a nice little festive feast for us to go with the turkey and the gravy and the stuffing and the pigs in blankets and all that. God, can't wait for it, Mick.
No, you're getting
All the
excited for it already. You're making me hungry.
Yeah. Cool. The injury report for the Cowboys has also been released. There's not really an awful lot on it to get excited about. Rico Dowdle is limited for the second day in a row. He's been a bit of a bright spark, but as we know, they've got Pollard, they've got Vaughn, and I think one other guy. Their running game has been pretty not electric, but it's been pretty reliable and consistent, and they had a pretty good game against the Seahawks on the ground. So maybe that's not going to impact too much, but Tyron Smith, the tackle, has not practiced for the second day on the bounce, so he's probably likely to be trending towards out. I don't know how impactful this is. Mick, you probably got a better idea about all these kind of players than me. Zach Martin, guard, is gone from limited to not practicing on Thursday, but that was down to rest. And yeah, well, it's NIR rest, so I don't know what that means. Non-injury related rest, yeah. So they're probably.
How much rest do they need? Did they play on Thursday night football against the Seahawks?
Well, I'm hoping that's why.
Rest.
I'm hoping that means something more significant for them than the letting on. Then if he's had that amount of rest and still needs 2 days off on the bounce, Tyron Smith. And I think the other injury is Peyton Hendershot, tight end, is obviously not in their top 2 tight ends. It's probably a very negligible omission. As for the rankings, on paper, I think that Cowboys are generally shading it, although our rush defense is still pretty stout. So we've got the advantage there, but generally in all of the defensive categories, the Cowboys do have us beat in the rankings, but the offensive rankings are a little bit more favourable due to the efficiency on 4th down, specifically still being the number 1 despite not having that much success with it over the last couple of games. We're still number 1 at the 4th down offense. We're ranked number 9 overall on offense, with the Cowboys at number 5. And I think their passing offense has been electric. They're number 3 and we're 13. But again, when it comes to these things, I think it's been the showcase of the season where we've not been lighting up the charts everywhere on the stats, but we've been grinding out wins. It's not all about where you are on the rankings, and as you've acutely said, Mick, their schedule has been a lot easier recently, so the chances are they're going to be putting up the stats, stopping the scoring, and generally being more efficient against weaker teams, so the stats are going to be inflated by that. So are you worried by any of the rankings at all? Is there anything that stands out to you, that apart from the past defense being 29th maybe?
Yeah, a lot of those a lot of the Eagles' defensive rankings really stand out, Phil, and one in particular is 3rd down defense percentage. 32nd
last in the league.
Very last, rock bottom of the league in 3rd down defense. That's just morale killing, drive killing. Well, not drive killing.
Drive extending. Yeah.
Drive extending. It's one of the worst we could possibly be. We can't be 32nd in any stat, never mind 3rd down defense.
You can't call yourself a Super Bowl contender and have those kind of rankings, can you?
No. Not 29th in pass defense, 22nd in total defense, 29th in red zone defense. It's nearly 70% in red zone defense. That's again we have played some really tough teams this year. That much is true. Whilst we'd say Dallas have had a cupcake schedule, we've had the opposite. What's the opposite of cupcake? I'm not sure. Cupcake with a fucking razor blade in it, Paul. But it's which maybe making some of these starts a little bit worse. But at the same time, we've got to be worried because of the first game in Philadelphia and how easy it was for Dak to pick apart our defense, especially over the middle. They just put CD Lamb in the slot. He did whatever he wanted. They brought in their tight ends for easy completions over the middle. Jake Ferguson had a massive game, if I remember correctly. I think Schoonmaker had I know he didn't get that touchdown today. He was inches away with Reed Blankenship making the pivotal tackle on the goal line, but that could easily have been another touchdown and a game changing moment.
I've just Dallas
tight ends always hurt us. In fact, the tight ends around the league always hurt us, and we're so susceptible to in the middle of the field. It's absolutely ridiculous. So to say you're not worried is just foolish at this point. But we've got to come out. We've got to respond. We've brought in Shaq Leonard. I don't know if he's going to start this weekend. I've just noticed. Sorry, Phil.
No, that's what I was going to say. Okay. I've got a secret theory, Mick. I think that was the reason why he visited the Cowboys first. Done a bit of undercover, in-house reconnaissance. Getting the 4-1-1 on the Cowboys situation and their weaknesses. I'll definitely sign with you if you tell me your weaknesses, what you're worried about, what to put in the water, what you don't like to eat, who's got the weak leg, who's got the weakness. Yeah, cool. I'm just going to go to the Eagles and just see what they've got to offer, and I'll be right back. And he never was. I wish it was that clear, but it wouldn't it be hilarious Agent Shaq.
No, but in fact, one thing that I've just been made aware of is, something that could force Shaq Leonard to be active this Sunday night is that Christian Ellis was claimed by the Patriots off waivers. So we're another man down on the linebacker core, which, you take that risk when you send the guy to waivers. And a lot of people were saying, he's just a guy, he's probably on he's the practice squad, a depth piece, but it's still one more guy down in an area that we're just so devoid of talent. With Zach Cunningham still not at full practice, it's such a concern. I mean, you don't have. We could be rolling into the game with Shaq Leonard, who's not played a snap for this team, paired with, say, Zach Cunningham doesn't make it. Who's going to be paired with?
I think, call me naive if I'm totally off the ballpark here, but is it not easier for a defensive player and a defensive player of Shaq's experience to come into a team and then play that week and not be as... I know Kevin Byard is the evidence to counter my point, but the general assumption would be that you generally run types of defenses. You don't run sort of routes and stuff and know your quarterback and how he likes to do things and all that sort of nuances. You're generally reacting to an offense and being in the right place at the right time and making that tackle that you need to. So maybe there's less risk with putting a player of his caliber straight into the team. I'm just trying to be positive here, Mick. I don't know. Tell me I'm...
No, I know. I've been very negative about this game so far, and I do apologise for that. But I mean, if we want to look at a way that we could win, run the fucking ball, because Dallas can't handle it. Dallas can't handle the run, and we have to get this run game alive and kicking. Get Swift the ball often and early. Get us into second and manageable, third and manageable. Give us a chance to move the ball down the field. Get this run game moving, and you get a chunk play. Great, that's fantastic. That's even more. But you have to keep this defense honest. Like you said, against the 49ers, we're making it too easy for them. They knew when they were going to throw the ball, they were just leaving people in coverage, and we're getting AJ and Smith tied up. Hopefully we'll have Dallas back for that, and then that'll provide another safety blanket for Hurts, and we can just throw a short intermediate ball over the middle for that completion if the two wide receivers are tied up on the outside. So that's the way that you see this game going. Establish the run, get Dallas involved, and stop with the fucking screens, man. I'm so sick of the screens.
To be fair, I think the screens have worked better recently, but you're absolutely right that if the running game isn't established and isn't a dominant part of our offense on Sunday, it's going to raise two serious questions for me. One we've already spoken about, which is, the hurt situation and whether that really is impacting the ability to do RPOs and offload the ball, as opposed to, because keeping the defense honest and picking the right move. But also from a coaching perspective, that, Sirianni's come out in the presser this week and acknowledged the two fans, and he says he loves the passion and he knows they need to run the ball more, so he said the right things. He's acknowledged it. The fans feel heard. But if it doesn't go that way on Sunday, the fans are going to be like, you're just talking out both sides of your mouth, and you're not doing. You almost like you think that we don't know what we're talking about. And if there's anything that Philadelphia Eagles fans know what they're talking about, it's football. So, and on that lovely positive note, we're going to wrap up the podcast right there. Normally we do a prop bet, but between the three of us, but since Liam's not feeling well and not able to make this podcast, we'll probably do that offline. We will post out in the group and on social media. We are 0-2, which fills you with the confidence that with our prop bets, that we know what we're talking about, but they weren't far off. But anyway, I'm actually looking forward to the game more so than when we started the podcast. I know it might be hard to believe, but I think we've talked through the pain. We've talked through all our worries, our concerns. We've also highlighted a few positives and consoled each other, cried on each other's shoulder, drank a bit of whiskey, and now we're feeling a little bit more rejuvenated, more positive. And yes, it's Sunday Night Football, which I think is the only thing that we can't change. Whiskey can change, but cannot change the start time. It can change the impact on you, but we are all going to have to be getting up in the early hours of Monday morning, praying for an Eagles win. But as Mick said, it's not the end of the world. There are plenty more chances for the end of the season. So let's just go out there. Let's right the wrongs. Let's punch the Cowboys in the fucking face in their own territory. Let's come out and let's make this a game where people go, the Niners game was a blip. It was just a bit of fitness. It was an off game. They're back. Yeah.
It's overdue, Phil. It's overdue for us to go in and give someone a fucking doing, and I hope it's this weekend against the Cowboys, because I hate those scumbags.
And on that note, thanks ever so much for listening. I don't think off the top of my head, I don't think I have any parish notices. I mentioned about the Seahawks watch along being cancelled. There will be playoffs watch alongs at Pass Yank, but obviously we don't know who, when, or what we'll be playing at the time. So once we get a bit closer to the time, there will be something on. So if you keep those weekends free, if you're ready to come down, I'm sure Liam will be down there for as many games as possible, and I'll try and get down for one if I can. But ultimately, Gaz is going to put on a show either way, and it's worth getting down there, especially for playoff time. Nothing beats playoff football in Pass Yank Avenue with a cheesesteak, some wings, a Pat's Blue Ribbon, or a pickleback, and enjoy the night. So on that note, we're going to bid you farewell. Good night, Bird Gang. See you soon.